YouTubers, Pastor Bob. Well, I hope you guys are all having a blessed week. Mine's going pretty good. Last week we did a video on lies Christians believe. And today I want to do a video on lies that people believe. And the first one is called the pan theory. And that means that it's all going to pan out in the end. I'll worry about heaven and hell when I get old. I don't need to be concerned with that right now. You know, one thing I do is I spend a lot of time in cemeteries. Everywhere I go, if I see a cemetery, I'm going to stop in there and look around. I've been in cemeteries in Germany, England, all over the place. Every place I go, I go look up the cemeteries and find them. One of the coolest graves that I ever found was when I was in Trier, Germany. I was at these Roman baths, you know, the ruins of the Roman baths, and I ran into a Catholic friar, and we got to talking, and he told me, he said, well, you know, he said, Matthias is buried here. You guys know Matthias from the book of Acts, when Peter decided that they had to pick somebody to replace Judas, and Matthias was chosen. Well, I went and found this church. It's a little Catholic church, and it's built over a tunnel, and you go down into this tunnel, and there's a glass sarcophagus with Matthias's bones and everything in it. And I thought that was pretty cool. That was the very first time in my life where I said, here's his name in the Bible, and there's his bones. So that was one of the coolest graves I ever found. But the reason the pan theory doesn't work, I'll worry about that when I get old, is because whenever I go to a cemetery, I always look around and I notice that there's a bunch of graves of little infants. And that's very sad. You know, little kids that lived 3 and 4 days. And then there's graves of babies that might have lived up to a year or two. Little toddlers, young children, young adults, middle-aged people, old people. Death has no bounds when it comes to age. There's a lot of people that got up this morning to drive to work who won't be coming home tonight. You never know when your days are going to end. And thinking that you're going to wait till you're old to make that decision, that is a very, very foolish risk. Number 2 is, I grew up in a Christian home. Therefore, I'm a Christian. You know, there's a lot of people that believe that. They grew up in a Christian home. And what does that mean? It simply means that, you know, maybe they said grace every once in a while before they had dinner. Occasionally they went to church, especially on Christmas and Easter. You know, they grew up in a Christian home. There was a Bible on a shelf somewhere. You know, there's a lot of churches in America today that if the rapture were to happen on Saturday, a lot of people would go to church on Sunday and they wouldn't notice but maybe 1 or 2 people missing. So I grew up in a Christian home is not going to cut it. The next one is, I go to church. I go to church. Therefore, I'm a Christian. Well, I go out in my garage all the time. That doesn't make me a car. You know, there's a lot of people that go to church, and there's a lot of churches that are nothing but a social gathering place. You know, I recently saw a video where all these born-again believers were standing outside the dome where Joel Osteen has his church. And these people were trying to explain to the people going in and out what being a born-again believer really means. And these people didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear it. They loved Joel Osteen. They loved the church. And they could care less if the doctrine was correct because it's where all their friends went. They went there on Sunday morning to see everybody, to feel good, go home feeling good. Everything was fine. I mean, they go to church. They're a Christian. They're going to heaven. And the next one is, America's a Christian nation. America is a Christian nation. At least it was before Barack Obama became president, because he announced America is no longer a Christian nation. But a lot of people believe that America is a Christian nation. You know, those people down in Haiti that worship voodoo, and the people in India that worship the pantheon of the gods of India, people from China that worship Buddha, you know, they're all damned because they don't live in a Christian nation. But we do. So therefore we're Christians. A nation doesn't make you a Christian. A church doesn't make you a Christian. None of that stuff matters. You know the story of the 10 virgins? Here were these 10 virgins that were going to a wedding feast to meet the groom. And he didn't come for a while, and they all got sleepy and they fell asleep. And pretty soon someone said, "Hey, the bridegroom's coming." So they went to trim their lamps, which means light them up, get ready for him. And 5 of them had no oil. And they said to the others, "Hey, give us some of your oil." And they said, "No way, Jose. There won't be enough for us. Go to the people that sell oil and buy some for yourself." So they went out to buy it. And the bridegroom came, and he went into the dining hall, and the other 5 followed, and he locked the door. And the others came back, started banging on the door. And afterwards came also the other virgins, saying, "Lord, Lord, open unto us." But he answered and said, "Verily I say unto you, I know you not." The terrible story about the 10 virgins is they were all friends. They were friends. They probably loved each other. They hung out together. They were sitting there sleeping together. They were friends. But the problem is, 5 of them, their heart wasn't right. Matter of fact, if you were to meet all 10, if you were to go in there and sit down and meet all 10 and start talking to them and just checking them all out, you couldn't tell the difference probably between one or the other if you were to meet them. They were all good people. Problem was, 5 of them, their heart wasn't right. They weren't born again. And when the bridegroom came, he knew the difference. He could see the difference. He could see the condition of the heart. And the last one is, people think, my grandma was a Christian. My mom and dad are Christians. They made us go to church. My aunt and uncle are Christians. I got a brother that's a Christian. I got a sister that's a Christian. People, there's not going to be any hitchhikers in hell. Not a one. No hitchhikers. You're not going to heaven because your grandma says, "That's my granddaughter." Your grandma says, hey, they're my family. Your mom's not going to say, "That's my daughter." Your brother's not going to say, "That's my sister, let him in." No. On Judgment Day, you will stand there completely alone on your own merit. So these lies people believe, it's not all going to pan out in the end. On Judgment Day, either you're born again or you're not. And if you're born again, if you put your faith and trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, your Judgment Day took place 2,000 years ago on a cross. You will not be going to the great white throne judgment. If you're not born again, doesn't matter if you grew up in a Christian home, doesn't matter if you got a Christian grandma, doesn't matter if you went to church, doesn't matter if you live in a Christian nation, nothing matters except, do you have a relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ? That's all that matters. Don't believe the lies. Pick up a Bible, open it up to the book of John, read the book of John, find out who Jesus Christ was, and put your faith and trust in him. If you do that, you will live on into eternity. If you don't, you won't. It's as simple as that. And that, my friend, is the plain truth. Heaven or hell, you choose. Just remember, once you take your last breath, it's a done deal.